Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Matt Burtz.
Hello.
Andrew Reiner.
Hello.
JV Gwaltney.
Hey, everybody.
Oh my gosh, we have a lot to talk about on today's show. QuakeCon.
Wow.
You know, it's a convention.
I was there.
Bethesda's whole thing. We'll talk all about it. Most importantly, talking about Doom Eternal, Fallout 76, a little bit about Rage 2, all things Bethesda all the time. After that, we're getting even nerdier. We got to do it. Battle for Azeroth, the World of Warcraft expansion, is out this week, and we have our two hardcore as hell experts, Andy McNamara and Dan Tack, coming in. You look, even if you don't like WoW, I think it's worth listening to that conversation just to lean back and hear these people talk about a game that they've been playing for 14 years.
It's not old enough to drink yet. Almost old enough to drive a car.
Damn close, yeah. Also, I noticed Andy was wearing this sweet Vice City shirt, which I was going to make fun of him for being so old. Then I realized, that's actually about the same time WoW came out. Just how bizarre is that? Then after that, hopefully Phantom Doctrine, a new XCOM style game that Jeffem seems to be enjoying quite a bit. Then community emails in the back half of the show. We're saying goodbye to our wonderful batch of Game Informer interns. We're kicking them out the door, but they are one of the best groups ever.
Yeah,
they're real great.
Yeah, and they're fun. So it's a fun conversation in the back half of the show. So stay tuned for that. Also, quick plugs, other stuff. Walking Dead. Remember Telltale's game, JD?
Nope.
No.
Remember it won like Game of the Year from Jeff Keighley or something in 2012? Speaking of games that have been around forever, the final season just started. Kim Wallace reviewed it, gave it a 7. The review's on the site. Other stuff, let's see, JB, Valkyria Chronicles 4, there's a demo out.
Yep,
on
it's
everything,
pretty good.
including
It's
Switch.
pretty much everything except mobile, I think. No, it's
Okay.
not on PC either. There's some weird
really?
thing. It's not available on PC.
Oh, weird. I think the original just went to PC maybe like 2 years ago or
Yep.
something. It was a weird late burn, but you're enjoying that demo so far?
Yeah, I'm really liking it.
Okay.
It's if you played the original Valkyria Chronicles or you like Fire Emblem, I'd check it out. Like, it's a free
Sweet.
demo. It's good. Go play it.
Does it still have that weird white haze around the edge? that
Yeah,
look
like
an
it
old
tries to make it
photograph?
look like an old photograph. Yeah,
That's such a weird look. but
it's
all right.
a choice.
It's
someone
a choice,
made.
all right.
Wait until you see it in 4K.
It's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, QuakeCon. Here we go, Reiner.
Yeah.
You were down
What do you
there.
wanna
How long were you down there? What was it like?
From a Thursday till a Monday.
Oh, my gosh. So I think we all watched.
Thousands of people in the BYOC, bring your own computer room.
That's so much fun.
Only lit by the monitors. People hooting and hollering.
How many people are still playing Quake Champions?
That's what I want to know.
There was quite a few, actually.
Wow.
Because during their keynote, it's like when they mentioned Quake Champions, it got a decent reaction and decent applause. Where it's like, man, this is their crowd. These are the
Yeah.
people that don't exist at E3 that actually give a shit about Quake Champions. And they announced it's free to play now entirely.
Yeah. The game I saw the most was Overwatch. Down
Really?
there. Yeah, people playing Overwatch. There was a bunch of Fortnite. The big new release is Dead Cells, like late at night. A lot of people playing that.
Weird.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. You see so many games. You'll see Street Fighter tournaments, and there's thousands of people down there.
I mean, I feel like
different rigs, PCs, consoles, you name it.
Okay.
I feel like that is like the one conference out there, the big one that is like geared towards that PC crowd, though.
Oh yeah,
Like,
everybody
it's just
brings their
bigger than
stuff.
Quake and Bethesda stuff. It's like everyone who's crazy about PC is there.
Yeah, and they leave it, overnight. They'll go up to their hotel room, just leave their rig down there.
I would go crazy. I would not. I would
Right.
sleep in there with my rig.
My rig
Yeah.
would be my pillow. Okay, it seemed like the star of the show at QuakeCon this year was Doom Eternal.
Yes.
They promised they're going to show gameplay. I had no idea they're going to show that much gameplay.
It
It's
was like
nearly
17 minutes, I think.
It's absurd. They could have done a 2-minute teaser, and I think fans would have been satisfied. But just wave after wave of just showing more and more and more
Yeah.
different locations. Bertz, it's rare that I see you so excited. But like in our Slack channel, you were buzzing, and then you had to give like a Reiner-esque walk around the bullpen. You're like, "Phew," like Kramer coming through the door. Like, did you guys see that? That was crazy.
I was buzzing. It was like the metal was coursing through my veins.
Yeah.
What was it? What had you guys so excited?
The speed. Honestly, like my favorite thing about the Doom reboot was when you use certain suit upgrades and runes, your character could get really fast and you'd just be moving through, ripping and tearing these dudes like with a velocity that you usually don't see in first-person shooters. And
Yeah.
the new one looks faster. The meat hook thing that they put on the super shotgun, where you can kind of like latch onto demons and use them to transport yourself around the map, and the new dash function.
It's like the latest DMC. It's just a lot of grappling, hooking around.
I mean, Doom 2016, the message they told you is don't stop moving or you die. Like, and you're chaining together kills, like kind of like a Tony Hawk game. When you get into the flow, you really do feel like you're just owning that stage. In this game, they've really opened it up. That's the big thing I saw was the first game allowed plenty of space for you to move around freely and pick different ways to pick apart the enemies. But this one, there's so much verticality to the spaces. Like you said, the meat hook opens it up where you can propel yourself across the arena, let go, and kind of fling yourself even further. You're using, you got a wall climb now where you can almost He's almost like got the moves of like Mario, right? Like he can flip off poles.
The most
He
metal
can dash.
Mario ever.
Right.
He can dash,
Just
but
covered
yeah,
in
it's
blood.
like Mario
He can jump
first-person
and scoot his
shooter.
legs to float like Luigi a little bit. It's got everything you want.
That's Doom 3, man.
Oh my god.
my
Okay,
God.
so I'm not a Doom guy, but is the meat hook thing a callback or reference? Is that completely new to Doom?
It's just like a new thing. It's like a grapple. The
Okay.
super shotgun's back. Like that's a fan favorite. Like the 2 shotguns that Doom's kind of known for.
yeah, and he's got like a blade on his arm now.
He does. Yeah,
that's
they
neat.
redesigned the Doom Slayer. He also has a equipment launcher on his back.
They just turned him into the Predator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like got
Super
it
fast
shoots
Predator, yeah.
rockets and flames and all
yeah.
sorts
There
of
looks
crazy
like
stuff.
there's a lot of different loadouts for that, which I'm excited to experiment with.
And
Yeah.
those weapons you're using aren't just to kill things, but you got to start thinking strategically. Like when you use a flamethrower and hit someone, they drop armor shards. So you know, it's like, okay, I need armor, I need health. So you're going to start using weapons based on your needs as well, as you're just flowing through these waves of enemies.
Right.
Twice as many enemies.
Yeah, which isn't necessary because, you know, like that one of the criticisms you could levy against the last game was towards the end it started to feel kind of samey. They weren't throwing new challenges toward you. I think adding, you know, twice as many enemies might go a long way to make that
Yeah.
feel a little fresher.
And it was cool that like they said that they were pulling from like Doom 2's enemies specifically, like because this is kind of sort of a Doom
Arachnotron,
2 in some way, like it's hell on earth, the entire premise here. And they also said destructible demons. They're
Yeah,
big on like
so-
battle damage.
The Arachnotron, real quick, you can pick away at the big gun on its back, destroy that, and then he can still attack, but he's weaker, right? His big, huge BFG kind of attack is gone. And then the other big change is it's not just Mars and Hell. You're bringing Hell to Earth, and then they're taking you deeper into the cosmos to places we haven't seen before. Like one planet we saw was Phobos that had the BFG 10,000 on it, which is just this huge Death Star-like cannon mounted on the surface of that planet.
I will say during that demo, like I did love the original, the reboot of Doom. I did feel like the level design for Hell was a little bit disappointing towards the end, where it was just a lot of stone and fire. You know,
Yeah.
They could have gotten a little bit more creative, and I really like sort of like just the living organism approach they took with all the level design we saw in like that big city. You know, when the Doom Slayer was just sort of navigating, it was really
sure.
gross and gory, but interesting looking. I kind of hope there's more of that there's more interesting level design and art design.
Yeah, well, they even teased in the video, which was an odd detail about like, hey, we really give a crap about the lore of
Oh, yeah.
Doom. And they had a quote where they said, we're not making a Doom game anymore. We're building a Doom universe.
That's right.
They could have done better with that Doomiverse.
Doomverse, obviously. What do you guys take that
They're not
to mean?
EA. Jake.
Does that mean like a name like
yet.
Eternal means they want it to be a living game, or they're just talking
No,
about blowing out the lore?
Blowing out the lore. Everything
Okay.
in the game has a meaning and a purpose. Like, why am I fighting this guy? Where did this gun come from? You're going to find all that stuff out.
Okay.
And it's not just like they had that stuff in Doom 2016 off to the side where you'd go read the codex. Codices? Is that plural for codex? I don't know.
Kodai.
Who gives a
But good answer. But that is sewn more into the critical path. So you're going to learn more about what's going on as you play. But yes, some of it will still be optional.
But Doom Guy also looks like he still doesn't give a shit about what the story is, which I love. You know, that scene where he just grabs the key
the
card
guy.
and drags the guy with the lanyard. over
Right,
to
and
his-
everyone's so
terrified
scared of him.
face.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. I really like that interview that you did when you were talking with him about the, like, I think you asked them a question like, do players actually care about this or
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
And they were like, well, there is like a part of our fan base that like devours the codex,
Yep.
that is just really into it. And I'm really glad that they're like developing for that.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else you learned from talking to those guys that people wouldn't have learned just watching the stream?
Yeah, there's a lot in the preview and interview I posted on the site. Anything else?
They know that the multiplayer sucked ass last
Oh,
time.
yeah. They're making it
Oh.
internally now.
Yeah, they kept throwing
interesting.
certain affinity under the bus, basically, going like,
no.
look, we realized it wasn't Doom enough.
Yeah. Oh, other things. SnapMap is gone. They're looking at mods. They won't say if they're going to be in or not.
Is it just SnapMaps? SnapMaps, do you think overall was seen as a failure? Did they have any
Oh,
like?
yeah.
Massive
Oh, really?
failure. Yeah.
Okay.
And also Escalation Studios that made that. Todd Howard devoured that and made that another Bethesda Game Studio. So
that's
Like
Bethesda
he
Games.
himself.
yeah, he did. He's
So that's the Dallas
He
studio now,
unhinged
right?
his jaws.
It's like a snake. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said
then
he said that they were working on Starfield as well. This team down in Dallas
Correct.
now.
The last thing is they announced it for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and right out of the gate Switch. So I hope that
crazy.
means
Running at a hot 480p.
all at the same time,
Yeah, that'd be
opposed to
nice.
like the staggered release on Switch.
Did you play the Switch version of the last one, JV? Or was that just
yeah.
Wolfenstein?
It's I thought it was okay when it came out, and then I played the Wolfenstein one, and the Wolfenstein is, it's not like a transformation, but it's markedly better. So I'm kind of hoping that Doom Eternal gets the same thing, where it's like, oh, this is really good, because going back to the Doom release on Switch, there's a huge difference between the console release,
of course,
and the Switch release in terms of like how fast everything feels that I don't like.
Okay,
I don't like that.
One of the interesting things they also said is that in this one, hinting at multiplayer here, is that you can invade other people's games.
Yeah.
Do you like that idea, Bertz?
We'll see. I mean, I try to keep an open mind, but immediately I was like, well, that doesn't look like a thing I'm interested in.
Well,
right.
Well, hopefully you can just turn it off, right?
Yeah.
And so are you just choose an enemy to play, or are you going in as one of those freaky marauder guys?
Don't know. And you can team up with other people to create a invasion force, basically, to go into games. But they said that might not be the only way you can kind of interact in the game itself. So there might be
integration or something.
There might be co-op. Maybe they're hinting at. I don't know.
It's interesting that like you have these developers giving, players the tools, especially after the Division's whole Dark Zone thing, the tools to be massive assholes in other people's spaces.
Right.
And I'm kind of curious, like the mindset with how do developers, sort of curb that maybe for people who don't want that, whether it is just a switch or it's like they justify it to themselves and like, well, that's part of this universe, so deal with it.
Right.
You know?
For sure, which is a good transition over to Fallout 76. Or it seems like the main thing people are worried about is, are there going to be a bunch of assholes running around in the wasteland?
Yes.
24 of them, right?
Yeah. There are so a couple dozen people on a server at a time.
Yeah.
And the big thing that they announced two things at QuakeCon. One was the perk system, the special system, that their attribute system for the Fallout universe is now card-based. Where you are buying or you're leveling up to get a pack of cards. There's no microtransactions whatsoever. Okay. The only way you get cards is through leveling up.
Cards just feel gross, but okay, sure.
But there's hundreds of different cards. Each one has like a different kind of skill or boost on it. Like,
without getting into spoiler territory, that was mostly fun. Seemed a little bit quicker than Legion with a little bit less payoff for each zone.
Huh.
In my opinion.
Leaning into the Horde versus Alliance thing with this expansion, right?
Absolutely.
Is that the overall theme? Is like, hey, we're keeping some nostalgia.
But there's also something else definitely going on, and they hint at it extremely strong. They don't even hint at it. They just hit you over with a sledge.
Okay.
I don't want to put spoilers in, but yeah, there's some other forces are in play here as well.
Okay. All right. So it's just easy marketing.
I mean, I think you could say that like they've already pointed out that like the old gods are involved in some way, right?
Yeah, I mean, and for Andy's side, I hear on the Alliance side, it's much more in your face immediately.
Okay. Number one, I always find WoW lore to be pretty medium. By the way,
we could say I'd agree with that.
Okay. It's fun because I think one thing that WoW does really well is that they take their lore seriously for the people that really love it, right? But they also make it pretty digestible and easy to like kind of get through. And so it's not overly complicated. There is a backstory that does get complicated, but like you can kind of pass through it. Like I watch all the videos, right? You know what I mean? When the videos come up, I watch them. I don't immediately skip them. I will immediately skip them from now on, right? When I do alts and things like that. But you watch them. You want to see what's going on. But there's so many disconnects. Like this one cracks me up. Like there's literally at the beginning, a major character gets like sentenced to death kind of thing, right? And then you just walk away, do world quests. You know what I mean? And like you don't even like really talk about it again for like a long time. You're like, oh yeah, and like people like talk about. I mean, and yes, you're like consolidating the Alliance or the Horde as like you kind of like build for the Battle of Azeroth, right? Which is the underlining war that they're doing.
Okay,
but I'm with Dan. Like they kept systems. There's a lot of systems that are similar. The Azerite thing, I think I maybe disagree with Dan a little bit in that, like, I think I liked the weapons better. I think I liked the artifacts better. I because I like that this one in this case makes it where I can, if I change specs, like the other one, if I had to level up a weapon for tanking, a weapon for damage, and a weapon for healing, which that's a lot, right? And if you and your friends were like, hey, can you just tank that? You're like, I didn't level up my weapon.
You're screwed.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of work. In this case, with the neck is the piece you never change out. So when I switch to a different spec, I can already have a weapon that's pretty good, like that I picked up, like doing things in the world. So it's easier to switch specs. I don't have to invest in much time into doing specs. But I found the weapons were more interesting, right? I felt like the world was more interesting in like Legion was like, you got everything. I always kind of said it was like kind of an Oprah moment. It's like, you get a car, you get a car, we got like everything we ever wanted as WoW players. And this one's definitely like a step back to be more, I don't want to say generic, but a little more flatline, right?
Okay.
And I say that in that like your powers that you get from these artifacts, I don't even notice them. You know what I mean? I like select stuff,
but I
and
think
I'm
that
like,
we will.
eh.
Like we're getting. I mean, I've got a few pieces of gear now that I can't even get the first tier unlock. Right?
Yeah, I
Like,
have that too. I'm just saying that like even when we get to the end and they add things and hopefully they add like active type of, because like Legos, they were a pain in the butt to collect, but when you got a Lego, you're like, I've got this shield now, right? It was like very obvious, and like the powers that they gave you in game were very apparent, right? And they were
They were huge and significant, and I think that's actually
what the
why
plan
they're gone.
is, right?
Why they're gone? Because before it was like you can't join our raid unless you've got 4 Legos or 3 Legos or
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that you're right. It's definitely grounding and making the game more accessible. But I don't know that I'm saying that makes it more interesting, right? If you're saying
That
the
makes sense.
high of the last one was like these Legos were really, and even like when you went from character to character or even from class to class, you would get Legos that were pretty different and pretty interesting.
Legos, just real quick.
legendary
Legendaries.
items. These
Okay,
are
thank God.
super
Sorry, okay.
crazy.
Like the top end
God tier
items.
drops. Right?
Yeah,
If you got one of
like,
these, you were like, whoa! Like
Got it.
Like in Diablo,
you would grind
boom.
for 2.5 weeks to get one.
Yeah,
Okay.
And like one spec would have 12, 14.
yeah.
They have shared piece. So I mean, like there was a lot of grinding to get those. And as Dan says, if you didn't have the best Legos, you were totally gimped.
Like yeah, you were letting your team down by not having Legos, and since there was an element of random, there's an element of chance. in
A
how you-
huge.
yes.
Yes.
It was almost you'd have to do multiple raids. You'd have to do everything.
It was disheartening as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when you'd go play with your friends and you were like getting your butt kicked, it wasn't because you were bad. It's because you didn't get lucky.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is
Right.
exactly correct.
You know, and luck was fixed over time. Right. Perseverance would always win. But
you had to persevere a
But you had to
lot.
persevere a lot. Yeah, it's true. But I mean, I felt like the highs of those moments were very high, right? Like they were really engaging. I'm not feeling that right now. But there's a lot of things that are in play here. There was a stat squish because basically at the end of the last expansion, we were hitting for like 6 million. Like I could hit something with my sword for 6 million, right?
Nonsense. Okay.
And then so they did a stat switch when they released 8.0 about a month and a half ago. And so like at the past I would have had haste in the thousands, right? And all of a sudden I had haste in like the hundreds,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
And I hit things instead of for millions, I hit it for like a big hit would be like, man, I hit that for like 6,000.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I
Huge.
mean, it was a huge shift. So like the game to some degree, I think feels a little like because we were at such a high and we're pulled back down, like the game feels slower to me right now. Like,
Interesting.
every
Okay.
character I play, like in the past, because I had high haste, because I had all these things and I had a whole raid set, which raid sets are gone now, right? I had 2 of the top end Legos. Like the game was fast and furious at that point. Like every character I played had a lot of interesting things at play. And because we're going back to this ground zero, and because we don't know where we're going to be a year and a half from now,
don't.
right? Like, this is totally. I mean, I'm trying to be fair. I'm judging what's here.
Yeah.
I know where it's going, but like, all the highs are gone, right? Like, even on like I play my paladins, what I played primarily, and I've also been playing my shaman some. But like my paladin used to be like you'd hit crusade and it would be like an accelerator. You'd just start hitting buttons as fast as you could to kill things, right? And that was a problem, by the way. I get why balance wise. It was a burst of damage they didn't want to have happen, that all my damage happened within that crusade. But now when you hit crusade, yeah, I mean I hit a little bit harder and maybe like a little bit faster, but it doesn't feel faster.
Yeah. Is that just a paladin issue, Dan, or do you notice that as well?
I'm guessing it's just because we are so
We're noobs.
we're early in the Azurite
Yeah.
cycle. We don't have the crazy gear that's going to be like you need an Azurite level 50 trinket to unlock this crazy blast off crusade effect. Whenever you hit crusade, do a billion haste or something. And that part is like I agree. Right now, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Things definitely feel slower on my mage too. I hit time warp and I'm like,
Did someone hit it? Yeah,
Am I even
exactly.
getting a
Yeah.
haste buff?
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I mean, but that's just because everything is dialed back.
it's reset
Yeah,
to some
yeah.
degree. I mean, this expansion is a bit of a reset and a
Certainly.
refocus.
For the sake of the future of WoW.
Yeah, I mean they have to do this. To some
Every
degree.
expansion in its own way is basically a reset. Since even the very beginning, when you'd replace epic loot that took you months to acquire with a green drop from a tree.
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing when you're leveling. You're like,
God.
I worked so hard to get
I
this
know.
gear, and you're like, this green quest item is
I was like,
so
I
much
don't wanna give up
better.
my
And you
old
just
gear.
had to put it on
No.
and then put your old gear. Like, I'll even do the thing where I put old gear in the bank because I'm like, I just want to keep it because I worked so hard for it. And then I know 3 months from now, I'm just going to go, what idiot put all this in
Yeah,
the bank?
I
I got to
know.
sit here and delete this for like an
Do you have
hour.
anything from like 14 years ago? Do you have any items that you've saved?
I did. And then there was a moment where they wouldn't give us more bag space, which was this is an old school complaint with them. And they were like very limiting on vault space. And I was like, I gave up and I finally deleted a bunch of stuff, which I can't get back now. And I don't have all those sets. And like, they're hard to get back now to some degree. And I'm a little bit bitter about it.
Oh, no.
But I finally gave up. And then I think like 3 months later, they were like, we fixed it. And I was like, oh, I hate you so much.
And also, Hanson, one cool thing about that is
Yeah.
any gear that you had at any point can now be transmogged on your character, so you can wear old stuff even if you're not wearing it.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
it has a collection system now.
Yeah,
It just
it does
didn't
now,
back. It
yeah.
didn't
Right,
back
right,
then,
right.
and
Okay.
I don't get credit in my collection system for the stuff I had
That-
way
that was
back.
gone, right.
Oh, that
Yeah.
sucks.
Like
that
all the
sucks.
vanilla WoW stuff that we collected is basically gone
It is,
Right.
because I
unfortunately.
needed to make bank space at one point, and then in Burning Crusade, I think Cataclysm, my stuff has gone. I mean, it wasn't until.
They didn't. Yeah, it was a while in.
Yeah, they added transmog. Like when they added transmogging, they also put like a kind of void space you could store things in like that, but that didn't exist until like,
Okay.
the middle of the overall arc of WoW.
Dan, highlight so far, best
yeah,
moment, thing you appreciate the most?
Okay, so just really quick dialing down.
Yeah.
I like the quest zones were, I think they were more or less on Pro Legion on the Horde side. I like the Nazmir zone. You do 3 main zones, and then you have like sort of offshoots into enemy territory for like other zones, and that's your leveling experience from 110 to 120 more or less. And they've dialed back on the system, the little like mobile game system where you send your followers out on missions. That's very tiny now.
Huh.
You've only got a couple followers and a couple things, and that's fine with me. I know a lot of people didn't like that system. It was pretty extensive in Draenor, and then they dialed it back a little bit last expansion. Now it's even dialed back even more, I think.
A lot more. It's
So-
the things that you get from that are like
Right.
your Hearthstone goes faster. It's
Yeah.
like that's not the sexiest.
It's
like
not.
like you're like,
We're
oh, I
not
worked
ge-
so hard to get that boring thing.
We're not getting the super powerful effects that we used to get from that stuff. But,
Okay.
but it's still there. And I like the seafaring aspect theme is fun. It's fun themed. Like Zandalar's theme is fun. The trolls walking through the jungle, killing big dinosaurs, taking out blood trolls. This was fun stuff. This
Yeah.
was good. It was good. It was definitely I didn't have a problem with the leveling experience. The island expeditions seem fun right now.
And that's the weird new PvE, PvP
That's the thing that we took a look
Yeah.
at in that
Okay.
new gameplay
Yeah.
today. And I'm just hitting the point where I can start going on harder ones and the PvP ones, which I really want to get into. In the past few days, I've just been doing the regular ones. And that seems to be the major source of Azurite for you per week, because there's a big meter you fill at the top, and if you hit the top of that, if you collect so much Azurite on these islands, you get a giant boost to your...
It's going to be a part of your. I mean, it's very obvious. It's going to be a part of your weekly routine of a character that
Yes.
you care about. You're
Yeah.
going to do the island expeditions to level this
And it
up.
seems okay, Andy? You're looking forward to it? Just
Yeah,
doing
I
that
did
again
some
and again?
earlier today. I thought they're fun. I mean, I'm with Dan. I think they're fun right now. I want to see where they go.
Right.
I want to see what they're like when they PvP. I mean, that's the thing is, so many things right now are hard to judge. Like even the open world stuff, like you could have war mode on, which I did when I leveled, and there were times when it was really fun, and there was time when war mode was cool, and then there was times when they sent me from the Alliance side to the Horde side, and we were like, oh, this is cool. We can kind of like expedition and like run into like people every
Yeah.
once in a while, and then like one world quest we went to go do, we're like, oh, that one's just right over there. It'll be fine. And we came around the corner, and there was like 200 Horde. I mean, it was just like it
awesome.
Like it basically brought us to an area that was kind of a highway. Let's say like that's like a hard like quest point
Yeah,
that
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
is doing. And we came around the corner, and we were like, run. You know what I mean?
Just Han Solo with the stormtroopers?
And then
Okay.
we got killed, and we got farmed, and like
Yep.
and so the game's a little out of balance right now as far as like how that settles. So it's hard to judge war mode or judge the islands because we don't know
Yeah.
how the PvP stuff goes. I mean, we
Yeah.
know how it works. We just don't know how it's going to play out.
Right.
So for me, like I turned off war mode. Now, when I go to the Horde Island, I turn war mode off.
Yeah, me too.
Which is I'm embarrassed to say it now because it's so overpopulated with people leveling. And it's so unbalanced because everyone on the Alliance side is leveling on the Alliance side. All the Horde people are leveling on the Horde side. So when you switch to the other side right now, it's heavily favored to the other side, right?
But that's
Okay.
again, this could be a time thing because once people are 120, they're going back and forth through the islands freely.
Yeah.
So
that would you would think it might even
Yeah,
out over
yeah.
time. It may not because you are kind of you have to take a
you're still in
boat
enemy
to
territory,
the
yeah.
other side essentially. You don't just like take a flight path. The flight paths are to this island. It's kind of like the old Kalimdor kind of effect,
You're
right?
basically they are two different worlds. You have to. It's a pain. Not a pain.
Weird.
But there's
That's kind of cool, isn't it?
It's
Just to put some distance back in this world.
It is, but like at the same time too, I would point to that like now because I only have 3 zones to because there's only the Horde or there's only the Alliance way to level. It kind of removes the ability, like when you play an alt, to make that more varied.
absolutely yeah.
Right, you're stuck doing that kind of one path. I mean, now you can start with different of the 3, like do 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. You know, some variation on that
basically
order.
doing all 3 or 2.5. as
Yeah,
I did,
at that time to level. So in the past, you could have done, I will do this one and this one, and I'll skip that one or whatever, because it was a world that like everybody did those. And I actually thought the quests were maybe better done. And the world was better done because it was done for everybody rather than 2 halves. And that's a tough, by the way, it's very close.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, if I were to give a nudge, I would give the nudge to Legion's, like, area, the Broken Isles, than I would these 2 islands, right?
Yeah.
But these new islands have a ton of new stuff in it. There's some great graphics. There's a bunch of new mobs. They did a lot of things. Like the art team did a lot of stuff to make these places more varied, a little more rich than they have been in the past. Even though you go to like an area that's like open fields, they look better. Like the houses look better. They've done a better job. Like right now the armor's pretty meh.
Yeah. Actually, I thought the Alliance had way better stuff, so I'm trying to farm your dungeons right now to get transmogs.
Yeah, I believe that. I think I got one of the transmogs I got for one of the boots I got from the Horde side was essentially flip flops.
Yeah, we wear garbage. Let's.
I was wow, I have flip flops on.
we're
I am
actual trash.
transmogging this
Yeah.
right now before anyone sees me running around in Azeroth with flip flops on.
And this is one thing I do want to. Yeah, let's go into this right now because we're we're leading
Flip-flops?
here. Not flip flops, but we're talking about dungeons briefly. So I like the music and the characters and all that stuff in my Horde zones were cool.
Yeah.
I liked them. So dungeon though, man, I got to tell you, I am not loving the dungeons in regular mode.
Okay.
Because I haven't gotten to heroic and mythic yet. That's where everything changes. But while we were leveling, they didn't seem that interesting to me. At least
visually?
on the Horde side, visually, enemy types, boss encounters, not a high note for me.
Okay.
Currently, again, this all changes when you start doing them higher difficulties. The enemies usually get more abilities and have different mechanics. But
Well, the thing is too, like when you do it on normal mode, or even heroic, or even when you get to mythic and mythic plus, there'll be a power that they do that you just flat out ignore because it doesn't do anything.
Right.
And then as soon as it's doing like 400x damage, right? That little thing that in the past you ignored, all of a sudden you have to start paying attention to.
Yeah.
So the level of thought and engagement in a dungeon
Correct.
it starts to multiply very quickly as you get to harder and harder dungeons where you really have to concentrate. And that's kind of where we were at the end of the last. I mean, that's the thing is you're always looking at a curve that's going up, and we're at the bottom of that curve
The
trying to
dead
judge
bottom,
where the curve is going to go.
Right. Okay.
But I did see there were some interesting powers. I thought there were some interesting like bosses that I thought could get interesting.
I think your dungeons, because I've started doing them now that I'm on 20, so I have access to Andy's dungeons, were cooler than mine going through. Because like a couple of mine were just like the goblin one, the mother load.
Oh,
I don't know if you've done that one yet. It is just.
That's what I was going to be doing now instead of this podcast.
Yeah, I would be in there too. It's just like a long corridor of shredders and goblins, and
I think the manor is the one, or the manor
Yes.
on Alliance side was. I was like, this is Blackrock Hold. I don't want another
Yeah, it really is.
series of closed corridors
Oh my God,
filled
yeah, I
with
know.
like wave or group after group after group of mobs. And the other thing too is with the changes that they made, because they change all your talents, right? So the way that you work as a tank, the way you work as a healer, at their core they're the same, but they try to change some of the elements as they tune it to the way they want the game to be played. And so at the end of the last game, there were people who were tanks who could pull like
The whole
entire dungeons. And I mean
and-
like on super hard modes. That's the fun thing about the MDI, the Mythic Dungeon Invitational, is you'd watch the people who are amazing at the game pull these insane groups. I mean, you'd be like, I wouldn't pull 2 of these groups, and they're pulling 7 of them all at once. And then they're going to kill them, and you would watch insane things happen.
Yes.
And so Blizzard was like, we don't want tanks to be able to hold aggro on
1,000.
1,000
they,
mobs.
like you just
You
go.
know
You
what I
would,
mean?
It would be one pull from the start, and this was normal. The start of the dungeon, boss
the
is
first
here.
boss.
You just drag everything to
Really?
the wall. Yeah.
Oh God.
And you had those powers, right? You had those things that would engage that many people, and so they changed it. So like even like an AOE power that in the past would have been like, I'm going to AOE this and would have hit every single thing in its path.
Yeah.
Now they're like, it's going to hit 3,
Right. Yeah.
right? Hey, your AOE taunt, it's going to hit 3, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
so they're really trying to like they want to focus it in so that they can design. Ultimately, I think the goal is they want to be able to design a more tailored experience that they control the difficulty and how powers and people work.
And you think the community wants that, or they just want to keep breaking stuff?
That's a community point. That's
the thing.
That's a
They're
tough
always
point.
they're gonna find a new way to break it, right? It's gonna be
Well, it's challenging because here's the thing. They brought back buffs, which
yes.
in the last month that I've been doing raids, I hate that they brought buffs back. They're like, we're bringing back individuality. I'm like, I don't want individuality in that level because like basically what it is like if you do a raid and you don't have a warrior, you don't get a 5% attack bonus.
Because it's not really individuality. Now it's you have to bring one of these.
You're
class,
just
so you
essentially
get the
a requirement, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's now a requirement. So it's not just like, hey, I'm going to play with 20 of my friends that I know. I'm going to play with 20 of my friends that I know, and we have to have
and
these
one of them
exact,
has to be a mage. One of them has to be a warrior.
a priest. One of them has
Yep.
to be like you have to have these specific classes, which is these requirements. So there used to be a phrase that people make fun of that was like, bring the player, not the class.
Yeah. Oh,
But
gosh,
it's
yeah.
been mocked endlessly, by the way, that they said this at one point. But you are now back to requiring these things to be in the dungeons, right? And to be a part of what you're doing. And so that is on itself, like they have to balance that, right? And now they have to balance for PvE. And they have to balance for PvP,
Which is
right?
crazy,
And
yeah.
now they have to do all these kind of balancing passes to make sure that they're understanding of these kind of limited powers within these mythic dungeons because they want the mythic dungeons to be interesting and to be like kind of an esport to some degree as well. So
Okay.
another thing they need to balance. And then on top of that, in the past, they even like for world PvP, which is kind of a goal of this thing with
Yeah.
war mode, there were a time where they were like, look, man, we're just not balancing world PvP. I mean, they literally said, we're not balancing
World PvP
this.
was thrown under the bus, rightfully so. I think for many
wild. Yeah,
years.
in the past.
There was no way to handle that. Right?
Yeah, they were like,
yeah.
we're not doing it. We're just not going to balance it. So anyone that's like out of whack or anyone that figures out a weird, balance, like thing like, well, hey, if I wear this shoulders and like I can go blow people up as a tank, which is what was happening. A lot of people were playing tanks and just destroying people. They were like, that's world. We're not going to control that. But now it's a major portion of this game. So the list of things that they need to manage has increased, right? And that's part of the reason why maybe the neck and like the powers that you're getting from the Azerite armors are maybe a little more predictable.
Right. Okay.
Right, predictable, in which I used the word generic earlier, which I'm
sure.
going to reuse now a little bit because that's my feeling a little bit. They have flattened it to make it easier to balance across this wide area of balance that they want to do. But as a seasoned WoW player, and I think Dan will agree with me on that, is that when they open up to more, I get concerned.
It's a lot to undertake, and I do want to see how it shakes out. I still disagree with you about the gear, though. I think it's going to end up being more interesting than the artifact in the end.
I hope so, but I
see.
mean, you
It's
get a gear,
because now I get excited about drops again. Like something drops, like so this one has an unlock at 7, 15, and 25, and they're all different. It's like I'm still excited about gear drops instead of like, okay, this slot is done. This slot is done forever.
Yeah, I mean, I
It
agree.
will-
I agree with that. The slot being done forever was lame when you got
Yeah.
like the one Lego.
Right.
But I kind of feel like they could have been more interesting in like balancing the meta
Yeah.
and challenging like what Legos you used and use them as like powers to make it more interesting. Because ultimately,
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Legos are like a double-edged sword for me because, like, yes, it feels amazing to get one, right? And you're super powerful and they have crazily
Yes.
cool effects. But at the same time, you get that, and you're like, all right, I'm done with that.
you're done with
that's
that.
never changing. I'll see you in 2 years.
but I think that comes down to balance, and I also think that comes down to like what the raids have to offer. And I think
Yeah,
without raid
that's
gear
true.
now, that's an interesting challenge as we look to that and where that goes.
See, it's interesting because there's not raid sets, but there are still sets in the game. I
Well,
noticed that
there's
was
still sets in the game that you
interesting.
collect for transmog purposes, but I'm saying that like
I mean, like set effects. I know.
set effects to that from the Azerite pieces that you get from those dungeons. Yes, right.
I actually saw a real set while I was leveling. That was weird.
A real set that you were leveling.
Like a set, like set bonuses.
Oh,
like
from
an
like individual
actual item
dungeons.
set.
Oh, from dungeons kind of thing.
It was outside in the overworld, like some kind
Was
of.
it?
I killed a bird.
Huh.
I killed a vulture, and like it drops like something of a bird set, which gives movement speed for having X pieces.
So it
I know,
gives
weird.
it gives a worthless bonus. Yeah. Okay.
But,
Oh,
they still exist.
okay. All right. They still exist. Worthless bonus. But it's there.
Because the evidence, maybe there are going to be dungeon sets.
Yeah, I mean, there could be. I mean, there's a lot of things they can do, and they'll get player feedback, and they'll change. I mean, that's the thing. It's a live game, right? They can
That's why
change
they-
a lot
yeah,
of things.
that's
So
why
it's
they-
like anything we complain about now could sound stupid
And even
a week
and
from
even a
now.
week, yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
because,
like,
right.
because we are just about to hit that real content.
This is where it
we're about to
begins.
start fighting
Yeah.
in real dungeons, doing
Okay.
real encounters instead of like. That's probably one of the reasons why I am so down on the standard dungeon experience while I was loving because there was really nothing. Like I just
Right.
like the boss does the thing. You're like, yeah.
Okay. But
We've been doing
still.
normals. Normals
Right.
are typically pretty easy.
I'm well aware.
I was tanking them some just to get fast cues, and I
Yeah.
felt like they were okay to tank. Like they were interesting, at least a
Yours
little
were
bit.
cooler. Yours were cooler looking, I think, because now I've done all of the Alliance side ones too, and I think they're cooler. That one with the pirate one that you guys have.
You have to chase a greased pig.
I love that part.
You loved that part? Oh my god! I thought,
what the hell is this?
dude. In Mythic Plus, I'm gonna be so mad when we get to that thing and we're on a timer and someone has to catch a greased pig. I'm gonna
Literally
be
a
furious.
away.
pig just running around.
Okay,
and
yes,
you're
it's like
there
a joke.
literally is,
It's like a
yes.
gag. They you get to this arena, they're like, all right, well, your mission is you gotta catch this greased pig. And they're like, I like
Bet
the
you want
announce-
that bird set then.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan typically of Blizzard's like
Silliness.
for lack of a
Dumb
opera house encounters.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Opera House, that's good.
Where they have like different guys that can come in based on and they're like they call them out like, hey, today you're gonna be fighting this guy. It'll be different than the other guy you used to fight.
Okay.
And,
It
like,
changes at the dungeon, so it's
Yeah, yeah,
different every
Totally.
time.
Some
A little bit of
theatrical
variance.
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha. So overall, Dan, review is coming soon,
Review's
right?
coming. Yes, it's coming.
Do you have any idea when?
Obviously, it takes a long time to be able to do that with any kind of accuracy, especially since we're not going to have Warfronts or raids for some time now.
September
So,
4th, I think, is raids go live.
So is the review waiting for that stuff to come in?
I'm not sure. The review will be soon.
Okay.
We could do some kind of review in progress, I think,
It'll-
until,
yeah.
until the raids happen.
And Andy's second opinion review will also be going live.
I mean, we're going to talk about this. Believe me, this discussion is barely beginning. I assure you.
I'm trying to not talk to Dan. I was actually a little worried about coming here to talk about the podcast. I didn't want to, I've got feelings on it, certainly.
Okay,
you know what I
good.
mean?
Ooh.
Like
All right.
I think the game is interesting. I love WoW. I'm gonna play it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna level up a number of characters and see the world. And I'm excited. This weekend, I want to do the Horde side. So I mean, there's a lot of things I want to see and do in the game, and I'm excited to get to the raids. I just hope, that's my hope, is that they do make the Azerite armor interesting, because right
Right.
now it's not that interesting.
sure.
To be fair, I agree with
The
Andy on that.
dungeons, to your point, I don't think the dungeons are that interesting either. I
Yeah.
hope the dungeons get interesting. I hope the raids are interesting. I hope the war mode is good. There's a lot hanging on hope, and there's a lot hanging on, because even like our characters right now.
Like, I'm sure I wasn't blown. I'm trying to think back. I'm sure I wasn't blown away the last two expansions doing leveling dungeons either. Like, that's.
I don't know. I had fun in Legion. I had a lot of fun in Legion.
Yeah, I guess I did too.
You know what I mean? Like,
hey, wait a minute. That was a good.
like Legion was a lot of. Legion was. I think
It was.
that was the hardest thing they had to face. I think the biggest boss they had to face with this game was how good their last.
I almost agree
could be
because
worse.
a lot of the stuff that we have now, we kind of are spoiled by because we're just used to it now from Legion.
Yeah, they took a lot of things that were standard in that and are now standard in that. They did
Right,
not
right.
create new loops in some areas.
Okay.
So what we have is essentially, the end game loop right now, as 2 days in, looks a lot like Legion's. You've got your world quests, you got your dungeon options, and island expeditions now, which are really growing on me because they're like 3-person. You don't have to have a tank, you don't have to have a healer. You just get in there and kick around, have fun. Super 10, 15-minute experience depending.
Uh-huh.
And I'm interested today because I'm finally the right eye level to get in to actually do PvP in there against a real team of actual people. Have you tried that yet, Andy? I haven't.
Nope. That was that today's.
Yep.
I have an agenda.
What am I doing
for a
here?
while. I know
What
exactly.
am I doing here?
Islands, and then heroics tonight.
I love you guys, but I'll let you go home
Yeah,
and
I know.
play more WoW in your own peace, and you come back and talk about it at some other point. How
If
about
anybody made it through the podcast through this much of me and Dan
seriously.
talking about WoW,
And we were dialed
kudos
in.
to
We were
them.
dialed in too. So
that? I'm glad you
after a
guys got
sentence.
nerdy. That's the point of having you two here together. But for right now, you guys want to clap out?
Oh yeah, it's good by the way.
Phantom Doctrine, everybody. Ben Reeves,
Hello.
Jeff Margiafava.
Hey.
I've been meaning to ask you guys, what do you think about World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth?
Oh my gosh.
So exciting
Where do you
and
start?
or boring.
That's
I
another
don't know.
one.
Okay, this is a game that Reeves, I dragged you down to learn about. You're going to sit back and just soak in some info. Because, Jeffem,
I could get used to this.
you have put a lot of time into Phantom Doctrine
I
at this
sure
point,
did.
which is 80s spy-themed XCOM
Yeah.
from the creators of Hard West, which is an XCOM-like game that came out a couple years ago.
Yeah, that you probably haven't heard of.
But
Wait,
people like
did
it.
you play that one? I don't remember that
I
one.
didn't play
either.
that one. No.
Okay, the Creative Forge Games, this is Polish development house over here.
Yep.
What do you think about Phantom Doctrine?
I liked it a lot, but with some kind of major caveats to it.
What does it get right?
The kind of stealth aspect of going through levels.
It's like XCOM is what he means. That's what it gets.
But the
right.
stealth thing is just a little more like XCOM 2 then, I guess, where you don't want to trigger everything to kick off
Yeah,
the encounters.
it is kind of the opposite of what I of the experience that I always got and liked from XCOM, I kind of went into this thinking, okay, turn-based combat, lining up shots and all that kind of nonsense.
Overwatch, I get it.
Yeah, and you don't want to be doing that in this game. If you get into open combat, you have probably done something wrong.
Because spies aren't into open
Yeah,
combat.
they go around, they sneak around, and knock people out from behind and that kind of thing.
So you can take somebody out in one hit usually.
Yeah, the only thing is that your health bar, your health points or whatever has to be higher than the other person, and so that kind of creates this race of constantly upgrading your agents and recruiting new agents that have higher hit points and stuff like that.
Okay.
But otherwise, every character has the ability. If you sneak up and are right next to someone, you can knock them out.
That's cool. It's got a cool overall vibe too. A lot of haze, a lot of saxophone.
Yeah.
It's got a cool feel to it.
Yeah,
But it's
works.
1980s. What's the
It's
80s
80s.
vibe for?
3.
Two.
It's kind of
1.
it's Cold War
Contact.
Cold War kind of vibe to it.
Okay, and how's the
Okay.
overall story?
You're going up against a shadow organization that's kind of responsible for every conspiracy theory you could think of. So it's not super serious. They kind of do things with hidden, moles in your organization and stuff like that. That's kind of interesting, but you're probably not going to be playing this for, the surprise plot twists or anything.
Right,
Like that.
okay. But overall, I mean, you'd recommend it? Better than Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
No, probably not. I think Mario and Rabbids would appeal to a lot more people. For this one, you have to A, be into XCOM, and B, be open to something that's more complicated and slower than XCOM as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there are a lot of different gameplay systems in Phantom Doctrine, and they aren't explained well, and so you kind of have to figure them out on your own. I really envy people who are going to play this post-launch, where I'm sure there are going to be a million, Wikipedia sites and stuff like that that kind of break down how all these things work and answer your questions.
Right.
But otherwise, you're kind of going through trial and error and trying to figure these things out. And when you're trying to, come up with a long-term plan for how you're going to manage your base and what upgrades you should buy and stuff.
Right.
Like not knowing, being kind of fuzzy on the specifics for that kind of stuff is frustrating in the beginning.
Right.
at
The
least. Yeah.
management seems very systems heavy, to the point that when we recorded that New Gameplay Today video, Leo Vader was watching it, and it was basically the Vince McMahon gif of him watching the muscular guys come out. He's like, whoa, whoa, and then falling out of his chair because he's so into it.
Yeah, and all that stuff was really cool to me once I figured out how it was all working. And,
Okay.
And taking over enemy agents and converting them and all that
Torturing them.
Interrogating Hanson. We don't just
Enhanced
torture for no
interrogation.
reason.
I understand.
Well, depending on who you are. I love that XCOM is a genre of game now.
It's
Like,
the
it
new
really
Rogue.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like turn-based strategy games have been around for a long time, but for some reason XCOM just nailed a specific version of it that's perfect.
And
people
I
really
like that people are finding their own spin-offs and kind of doing unique things in that area.
And I think like GameSpot's Mike Mahardy was tweeting about this recently, but despite Kingdom Battle existing and being super solid, wouldn't it be nice to have Enemy Unknown on Switch?
Oh, yeah.
It's on a phone. It's on
100%.
everything. Is it on Vita? Or is it another one that they were
don't
talking
know.
about? I don't know if they did it, but
Just put it on the new Vita.
the Switch.
The Switch, yeah.
God, wouldn't that be great? God, I want it. Anyways, review on the site soon.
Soon, yeah.
Do you have a review score locked down yet?
Not yet.
Okay, Phantom Doctrine
Yep.
is the name of this game. Forgettable name, perhaps, but worth a look.
Yeah.
Okay, we did a New Gameplay Today video if you want to check that out. For now, not you guys necessarily, but with the concept of the podcast, want to move on onto emails?
Sure.
Here we go. And welcome back to Game Informer Show. We have, let's see, a whole new crew for emails because we're wild here in the Game Informer office. You can never predict who's going to come on by. So we have Kyle Hilliard.
Hi.
We have Cyril Vasquez.
I was supposed to say a mean joke and I forgot it.
On this podcast, this is a
Cyril.
family-friendly
How dare you.
podcast.
Come on.
There's no room for mean
Well,
jokes.
it's a good thing I forgot it then, yeah.
Perfect. Brian Shea.
Hey.
Welcome to the show, everybody. We have some emails that people wrote into podcast@gameformer.com. People have thoughts, questions, words of wisdom, dares, little games for us to play. anything that makes the show better, people send it to podcast@gameinformer.com.
No mean jokes.
No mean jokes. They're going to choose our absolute favorite of this batch and make that person question of the week and put their country or state of origin up on our big board and make them an official friend of the show from God's country. Much like Nicholas Brewer here of Searcy, Arkansas, not Arizona. He says, hey, Ben and crew. Can't say I'm particularly surprised that nobody knew anything about Arkansas. Even people who live here don't know that much about it. So I figured this would be a good time to let you guys know a few facts about Arkansas.
I know a couple.
Go.
Bill Clinton.
He didn't mention
That is a fact.
That's true.
He's from there, right?
People
can't
from
dispute
Arkansas
the governor
are called Arkansans.
That's funny. That's confusing for
It's
everybody
very
else.
weird.
You know who's born there?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton.
Johnny Cash.
Hey,
The Bill Clinton
from
of
the Taco
music.
Bell commercial.
Yep, you got it. Sam Walton opened the first ever Walmart in Arkansas.
That's right.
The barber shop that gave Elvis Presley his signature hairstyle is now a museum in Arkansas. Can you imagine that when you're that desperate for a museum? It's like, we cut that dude's hair once. I hope they still have his hair or something gross like that. Would you guys save that if you were cutting Elvis's hair? Would you?
Yeah.
Depends on
I mean,
when.
it sounds like it was before Elvis was like the biggest guy in the world.
I don't know.
If they're the ones who gave him his signature
Yeah.
haircut, like that
Well,
had to have been before.
Did you go to
Yeah, that's
Arkansas?
true.
Because you kind of have an Elvis haircut now that I think about it.
I got this in Austin.
Okay. The
That's also a museum.
World's Championship Duck Calling Contest is held each year in Arkansas.
That makes sense.
That's what I use my vacation time on.
And I
every
think it
year.
sound a little something like this.
Quack.
Oh, Shay wins.
Diamonds are presumed to have been found for the very first time in Arkansas in 1906. And this blew my mind from Nicholas Brewer here, where I thought, diamonds, 1906. It's like, surely they came around before then. It's like, yeah, they've been mined for like thousands of
Yeah.
years out of India and stuff.
In,
so I don't know.
in the United States.
It
was-
must be.
Okay.
Say, I'm
Still.
finding diamonds in games that are set long before 1906.
Yes.
All the time.
Right, exactly. About time you find a diamond for your girlfriend's finger, Brian Shea.
Hey.
Anyways, Taylor Witt also writes
That's a
in
mean joke.
from
Really
Nashville,
uncomfortable in
Tennessee. Taylor Witt wrote in. He says, hey, J.I. Crow, just read David Milner, who is Game Informer Australia's editor, occasionally posts on our site.
He should write an email, actually, so we can get him on the board up there.
Yeah, David Milner has never
Ooh.
written into the podcast.
If only he would have sent that feature in email form.
Yeah, you're the podcast. Yeah, David Milner, that's how we should submit every Game Informer Australia feature. I would love it. If you are listening to this, tweet at David Milner from Game Informer Australia to write into podcast@gameinformer.com. Anyways, he says, I just read David Milner's piece, quote, a look inside how Blizzard maintains World of Warcraft's lore, and it was fantastic. I was fascinated to learn about the work that goes into maintaining the continuity and integrity of a video game's lore. It's one of those things that you never really think about when playing a game, but it truly does make it all the more immersive and impactful. Like, Blizzard has a team of historians to maintain the lore and continuity of Warcraft. Historians! How cool is that? Is there a particular lore that you enjoy and love from a game other than World of Warcraft? Yes.
Yes.
I'd argue it's very easy to come up with lore that I love more than World of Warcraft. What do you got?
I like Mass Effect.
You can only choose one. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Favorite lore is Mass Effect?
Yeah, we'll go Mass Effect.
When did you know that you were into that? Like, what's your favorite subplot or
oh, man.
detail?
I just like learning about all of like the different species, like the different alien races from around the galaxy. Like just,
Okay.
you know, learning like, oh, well, the Krogans were in this war, and not that that's like some deep cut or
Right.
anything, but it's also been, 8 years since I've looked into the
That's
lore
true.
of Mass Effect.
I think it was Mass Effect 1. I think, like, the genophage story in particular. It's like, that's interesting.
it's a cool thing to look into.
Yeah, you know what? Space eugenics are a fascinating concept. I feel like we're really learning a lot here, everybody. Favorite lore? What do you guys have?
I love Zelda lore.
I knew that was coming.
I mean,
Oh, boy.
like playing Breath of the Wild and just seeing those subtle references to past games, and just the idea that they're all kind of like take place thousands of years apart from one another. Like, and yeah, I totally agree that Nintendo has like interjected that stuff after the fact. That
Yeah.
there's no way they started Zelda with this grand idea of this like looping story. But the way they integrate it today, I really enjoy it, and I inhale it and really appreciate it.
I'm
Yeah.
with you there. Like, not to the extent that like there is as much lore there as there is for Mass Effect, but
Oh,
yeah,
there's
I love
very
digging
little,
into that
and I-
stuff and
and
like
I-
finding Easter eggs.
And I think it is that kind of simple sort of Nintendo
approach to it, where it's like just a little bit, just enough to be.
There's enough
engaging and
mystery there
intriguing.
to where you want to see
Yeah.
where like subsequent games take place in that timeline.
Piecing it all together in your head.
Yes.
I still haven't watched the video, but I like that you guys did it and kind of winged it just one day. But you and Wade Wojcik, pre-Leo we call him, you guys recorded a video where you guys just like broke down the lore of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Was that fun?
Yeah, oh, I loved it.
It was very
Yeah,
interesting,
it's like
too.
a 20, 30-minute video or something. I actually
Yeah.
went back and rewatched it recently because Nintendo put Breath of the Wild on a place on the Zelda timeline.
Oh,
Well,
yeah,
they
where did they-
didn't really.
Well,
Like, they said it's
yeah.
at the end, but they wouldn't say which timeline it was at the end of.
Yeah.
Really?
Which is a little bit of, I mean, kind of what
pretty much
Wade and
what you
I
came
were sort
to.
of guessing at a little bit. So
what is right before it then in either timeline?
Wind Waker,
the original
and
Zelda.
Four Swords. Oh yeah, the original Zelda. Yeah.
Oh wait, so this would be after Wind Waker potentially?
Yeah. Like way after Wind Waker. Yeah.
So like the seas,
The seas receded.
they get
Yeah.
sucked off into space or something?
they sucked them off. I don't know,
Into
man.
space.
The sun ate it up.
Yeah, that's how a operation
Trying
works.
to follow the rain.
This lore sounds pretty cool.
I like Dota's lore just because it's really dumb and like cobbled together. Because basically the origins of all those characters is they're all from Warcraft, or we put that one character from Final Fantasy X into this, and it's like
Wait, which
Wait, what
character
is
from
the
Final
10?
Fantasy X?
Phantom Lancer. He's like this blue guy that makes copies of himself. The Cap guy from Final Fantasy X.
Look, I am a diehard Final Fantasy X guy.
The cat looking person that you
Okay.
can add to your party.
Kamari.
No,
Kamari,
this,
yeah.
Oh, Kamari. Okay.
And then
You're
like,
overthinking it,
there's a
Shay.
character.
I was like, what?
There was a
Phantom
Hydralisk
Lancer.
model that they turned into a Venomancer. So it's like,
Right.
but then Valve had to sort of co-opt all of that into its own lore. So like
Right.
basically the idea is that two shards of like the Mad Moon are basically fighting for control of like a planet, and sort of they're luring. They use their powers to lure different heroes onto their side, and they basically clash.
Where do you learn this lore?
You can just go online.
Wait, is it in the game?
Well,
anywhere?
they've released some comics over the years, and sort of you in some of the character descriptions and stuff. There's not a lot of it, but I like the idea of like Valve having to think about, okay, all these characters this is basically Ready Player One at some point.
Yeah.
How do we actually turn this into like an actual story that people at least care about enough to like these characters more?
They have a conceit.
Ernest Klein is still
Right,
asking
and-
that question.
Yeah, and certain characters have relationships that like they have voiced lines and things like that.
It's kind of like the fact that in Dead or Alive 4, there actually is a story for why a Spartan warrior is an unlockable fighter in
Right.
that game.
Do you remember what it is?
It involves alternate dimensions.
yeah, I mean,
Brilliant! Brilliant!
I mean, that's how they put Akuma into Street Fighter, into
Yeah.
Tekken 7. So.
Aren't GLaDOS and Wheatley like in canon in Dota? Like you can.
There's
or is
an
it-
announcer pack.
But is that like? Is there a conceit
I don't
for why they
think
exist?
no.
The
I don't
lore
think
of the
that-
announcer packs would be a nightmare to try
Yeah,
and open.
God.
So yeah.
But real quick, Portal 2 lore, another one.
I
really
actually, that
love.
was one of my alternates
Yeah,
there,
that's a good one.
along with Overwatch.
There we go. Overwatch. Mine
Overrated
could be guessed
watch.
by this next question here, which I'm going to force us to
That's a
answer.
mean joke.
Here we go. Hey, Game Informer crew. Mean jokes here. This is Rexamillion from Baltimore, Maryland here. Did any of you catch the recent interview with Kong Skull Island director Jordan Vogt Roberts on Collider's YouTube channel where he talked about his Metal Gear movie vision? If not, what are you waiting for? It was awesome. He showed some amazing concept art and talked about his plans talked about his vision that he plans on pitching to Sony. Here's a link to the interview. I did watch that interview. Did anybody else watch it?
No, because I don't really want to hear his plans. I want to see when it's locked in and when he's
Right.
But
Well,
anyway, continue.
He's
If
still being very vague about everything, obviously. But I'm fascinated by his campaign of doing all of these interviews just again and again and again. And everybody, look, we have fallen for this Metal Gear movie thing 1,000 times. Hollywood is the worst place on earth. It is the least surefire bet. Everything's rickety. Everything's going to fall apart 6 times before it even has the potential to being greenlit. Like, don't think that this Metal Gear Solid movie is going to happen. I would put it personally, but a 20% chance.
That was the number I was going to say.
You really 20%?
Yeah, I was going to say 20, 25, something like that.
Because they're at a point now, which is nice that like in this Collider video, like he does emphasize where they're at. And where they're at is first draft of the script, and then they're pitching it to Sony. So this is like pre-stage 0 of the Metal Gear Solid movie. Everyone just thinks that it's happening because he won't stop doing interviews about it because he's excited about it. And imagine strategically he's just trying to build up buzz to show then some sort of data points to Sony about like, look at the Google Trends for Metal Gear Solid movie. People are jonesing for it. I keep doing interviews somehow.
How weird would it be if Sony ended up making a Metal Gear Solid game after Kojima left Konami to go to Sony?
Wait.
Oh, if Sony made the movie, you mean?
Okay.
That is interesting. And I wonder, like, because Vote Roberts seems to be working with Kojima, or at least spitballing with them. They're certainly on Twitter all the time together, living in that Twitterverse. But, like, I wonder if Konami just isn't even involved at all. Like, they sold the rights probably a long time ago or worked out the deal with Sony, and now he just has to get it approved through Sony, and then it's out the door?
I guess.
It's possible. I mean, licensing is such a mess. Like,
It's confusing. But, like, he says in that interview that he's like, hey, I'm fighting for it. I'm going to keep fighting for it all my life. So it's still being fought for. Very early stages of being fought for. A couple things going well for it. Kong Skull Island, I think, did pretty well in the box office. The first draft of the screenplay was written by Derek Connolly, who wrote the Jurassic World films, which, say what you will about the writing of those films. I have a lot of thoughts. But, like, they have made a gazillion dollars. So not the worst talent to be attached for writing your screenplay. And the other things, it's like, I like his concept of where he says that, you know, everyone worries about Metal Gear being too insane and too wacky, and he's like, we have to lean into it. And and so it seems like he's hinting that it's going to be a parallel story between Big Boss, kind of 3 story and 1 story, and kind of jumping back and forth in the timeline to show like the cycle of pain for these soldiers and all that stuff, which is like, all right, that feels Metal Gear. He could do it.
do they get Kiefer to be Snake?
No, not him, not Robert.
No.
To be clear, like I want to see his Metal Gear movie. Like
Yeah.
I really want that movie to exist. But until it's like locked in, I'm hesitant to really kind of hear his pitch. You know, but I really want to see that movie be made, and I want to see him make it.
Man, I feel like I'm on the other side of that because I could easily go my entire life without seeing that movie just because like
If it came out, you wouldn't see it?
I would see it, but
Okay.
like I'm not like, oh man, I really hope they make that Metal Gear movie just because like I think I'm really over the idea of like video game movies being in any way like good. Just because like I have very little hope that it would be like, wow, this is the exact Metal Gear movie I wanted. Like
And
I would be
yeah.
curious to see it, but it's like I don't need a movie to be made to justify like now my favorite franchise has finally made it to the big time. Like that, I feel like that was sort of the case a long time ago when like stuff like the BioShock movie was first announced and
Yeah,
you'd
Gore
see-
Verbinski.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from people want to see their favorite franchises represented on a medium that they feel is bigger.
Why
than
do you
games.
think that? What do they get out of it?
Well, like, because every time when I was in middle school, like, you'd hear, like, oh, they're making this kind of movie, and everyone would get really excited, like, in a way that made it feel like if this movie is made and it's finally big, then that means video games are, like, super mainstream and accepted.
Or even just like it validates your hobby. I think on a
Yeah.
more personal level, you know, where Reeves has loved Spider-Man all his life.
Right.
And then, hey, the Spider-Man movies do really well. Now everybody loves Spider-Man, and it kind of
Right.
feels like I made the right choice earlier in my life by being so invested with this.
Right.
You know?
I like seeing stories that I know play out in other mediums as well. So like this is why I like comic book movies so much. Like I love Infinity War because it's cool to see those things that I've like experienced in other ways play out on the big screen. You know,
Right.
or like if they released like an Avengers game and like it followed one of the stories of like the movie, like I would love playing that same story.
The
even
Lego
if-
game's been out for years, Shay.
But you know, like a real Avengers game.
How dare you? Traveler's Tales listens to this podcast. Yeah, that's very fair. The other thing that I like about his pitch, which Kyle doesn't want to hear, but I'll tell him, is that he talks about like 3 is a big inspiration, 1's a big inspiration, and then I like that he says